What is shaken?
Are there angels watching this right now?
Yeah, of course.
Are they cracking up?
Yeah, they're having a blast.
You can't escape the pull of the golden mic, sister.
I'm hiding my authenticity.
Get butt naked, look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself your story matters.
This is my place. My place is to highlight amazing freaking people. I'm gonna do a shimmy!
What is shaking?
What is shaking, everybody? Dude, that's my line! I want you to smash it, Trisha Brooke! Channeling you today. Oh my god!
Oh, and she's like, I'm going through menopause.
I love this show! I love this show! You understand me?
What is shaken?
Are there angels watching this right now? Go back to school and finish my med school degree. The Golden Mic Live! Did you think that I was gonna change Lobster Bird? I want you to crumple up your notes in front of you. Now we're gonna go and deviate from the script. What is... Oh, shaken! Episode 209, Golden Mic Live. We are talking about moving past your ADHD and tapping into your true genius with ADHD coach Cathy Rashidian right now. Cathy, do you know why we've had 209 episodes of this show?
Why?
Because you cannot cancel me, Cathy! I run this show! I produce this show! Come on! 209 episodes! But Cathy, it is amazing to have you on today. Happy Tuesday. How are you?
Thank you. I am delighted to be here, and I love this energy. Keep it coming.
Amazing. So for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Mark Cordone. I am the founder of the Joy Revolution. And by the way, we are giving away an entire Fundamentals of Positive Psychology course. It's all in the show notes throughout the month of February. But more importantly, I get to ask people like Cathy on a regular basis 2 questions. And the questions are this: how happy are you today? And how much are you living in your full purpose? So, Cathy, take it away.
I am pretty darn happy. Happy to be here. Happy to be alive. Happy to, make this virtual connection with you that I didn't even know you existed a few months ago. So, man, I'm just happy to be here. And am I living to my full purpose and potential? I like to think that I am always challenging myself to that. And the more you get to know me in this episode, you'll know that my brain just doesn't sit down and say, we're just gonna coast. It doesn't work like that. This brain of mine needs to ride the waves, ride them high, ride them low, and that's just how I roll. So
I love it. It's like that song, This Little Brain of Mine.
Yep.
I'm gonna let it shine. Okay, now for those of you that are living in your full purpose and are feeling happy, living above the status quo, do not be afraid to unfurl your wings and live above that status quo. Hit the hearts, whether it's live, whether it's the replay, hit the hearts, let us know that you are alive. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people think that positive psychology is about Cathy riding on a unicorn across the country, distributing Skittles to all the good boys and girls across the world, making everyone happy. No, positive psychology is what Cathy was talking about. It's about riding those ups and downs and all arounds and how you can cope and effectively manage that throughout your life. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourself, no, I'm not happy today. I'm not happy, Cathy. Or I'm not living in my full purpose. I was working I've been working in, my place for 40 years. And now all of a sudden I'm feeling like I'm out of my purpose. That's cool. That's your story. Your heart beats just like everybody else. Hit the thumbs up. Let this interview wash over you, and there might be some things that stick with you. Hit the thumbs up. And here's the last thing. If you're feeling hopeful if you're feeling hopeful, and I'm not talking about the hope where you get on your knees and you're like, please, please, higher power, bring me a new Lamborghini so I can drive around and distribute these Skittles to the kids. I need you to deliver that. No, hope doesn't work like that. Hope works when you can imagine a fantastic future and start moving towards it step by step. And when you do that, it's as powerful as IQ or EQ. If you're feeling hopeful, there's another button down there. It's called the wow face. And Cathy and I are going to show it to you right now. Come on, Cathy, show the wow face. Let's do it. Yes, amazing. She's doing it. I'm loving it. I'm loving you already. Now, this is the thing. Cathy and I talked about this before the show. We have actually never talked in person, over the phone. This is our first time meeting. And so I do love the fact that this medium is organic and we get to go wherever we want. And so given that this is the first time I'm meeting you and this is the first time you're on the show, Cathy, what's your story?
What's my story? Let me start by, where do I start? Okay, so imagine going for a walk with your child. So for those of us that are parents, a stroll down the street with a dog, because we've got to walk the dog. And imagine you have a dog and a child and you're walking down the street. So it was one of those days where I wanted to take a walk with my 1.5-year-old daughter at the time and my little Bichon Frise white fluffy dog. We're walking down the path and we're walking 10 minutes out and I decided, okay, it's time to go back. I turn around to go back and all of a sudden I felt the gravity of the ground just pull me and I stopped. And I was like, oh shit, I can't take another step. So baby in one arm, dog in the other hand, and I can't move. I can't walk. And this just overwhelm washed over me. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't walk. And I started to panic. And it was only a 10-minute walk back home. So in that panic, in that stress, so much emotion came through me. Man, I've always been an independent person. I've always been a very competent person. I've done a lot of things. This is a walk in the park, and I can't do a walk in the park with my little girl. I called my sister, and I asked her to come and rescue me. So she's like, you're kidding me, man. It's Saturday morning. I'm sleeping in. Leave me alone. I'm like, no, I really can't walk back home. She came and rescued me. That day changed the rest of my future, if you will. So I went to my doctor and I said, what's going on? What's happening here? Why can't I walk the baby and the dog at the same time? And she had been asking me to do an ADHD assessment for a while because I was working in a corporate environment, fast-paced, so much going on. I had a few projects that needed a lot of my attention and resources. And she kept saying, either take a stress leave or take this assessment test. So I said, okay, give me the assessment. As I'm taking the assessment, the questions around having a hard time starting projects, having a hard time finishing projects. You see, I thought ADHD was for little kids, especially kids that are hyper.
Like hyperactivity,
I was never, yeah, I never was hyper. I was never, and I could focus. I had 20 years in the corporate world, digital marketing. I had done a lot. I had done big projects. Like I was, in my world, a successful person. Sure. So I thought, right? So having that baby at the age of 40, she was my miracle baby, and then seeing this assessment, the killer was this part, the very last two questions. Interrupts constantly. Cannot hold thoughts. I was like, this is actually an ADD thing that I interrupt people left, right, and center? Oh my God. And the
this is just not something everyone does?
No, you see, at work, towards that end, I was getting in trouble in the executive meetings where in the boardroom, people are talking, the CEO, the VPs. I'm sitting with all these high executives and I keep interrupting them. And afterwards, I would get a call or a walk in the office of Cathy. Either sit on your hands or do something. We know you're brilliant. You know you have good ideas, but stop interrupting people. And for me, I didn't understand what was going on at the time. And I was like just, sitting on my hands was my physical cue that I'm going to do this so I don't interrupt them. Long story short, I got diagnosed, got on medication, and the rest is here we are. I left the corporate world, and I needed to. One of the things that I'm jumping all over the place. This is where my brain goes. Is the story of why I became a coach was. It didn't happen overnight because I left that job and I went looking for other jobs that were more fitting for me, a little bit less stress, because I needed to just kind of tame the beast in my head. But what started to happen is I started to see that I'm in a way self-sabotaging some of these interviews I'm going to. I'm not really staying true to myself. And some of these roles in other lifetime, I would have nailed them. I would have got the jobs, but I wasn't getting them. It's like there was a higher calling for me out there. And the more I started to talk about my ADHD, the more people are like, oh, well, you shouldn't mention it. You shouldn't talk about it, especially in corporate settings. It's, people will look at you differently. And that made me really sad. Yeah. There's this stigma out there, I'm in Canada just as much as in Canada and US and UK, and the stigma that it's a US made disability thing. It's not. It's it's all over the world.
Now,
so that was
quick question, because this is my ADHD interrupting. So when you were younger, Cathy, like as a child, did you show signs, the typical signs of a kid with ADHD?
I don't think. Well, so that's the thing, is what's typical ADHD, right?
Yeah.
Especially in girls, it's different, right? With some of the girls, we end up being daydreamers. We get quiet. So there's the inattentive side, there's the hyperactive, and then there's the combined. I'm a combination of everything. And the universe likes to do that with me. I don't know why, but it's like, here, have all of it in one head. Go. So for me, and like I said, everyone is different. I was a natural born leader, but at the same time, I really had a hard time fitting in with everybody else. I always wanted to make sure that I fit in with all the other friends and try to make sure everybody's liking me. I remember being loud, and sometimes that kind of scared off my little friends because I was too excited. I would get too excited about those games that we played as children, right? I had too much passion, and that's one of the things about me is I go all in. I'm all passionate about everything. So that was another sign. Math skills sucked like it was nobody's business. It was like, as to this day, I was talking to my husband the other day. I'm like, I cannot comprehend what 1 pound looks like. I can't tell you that. It just, my brain, he's like, what's a pound? And I'm like, I can't comprehend it. It just doesn't resonate. Some of us have time blindness. Some of us have, we measuring things. It's weird. Directionally challenged. There's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, math was the biggest thing. And I was raised in the Middle East till about I was 11 years old. Coming from that culture, you better know your math, because your math is like your survival skill to the rest of your life. So with my parents and all of that, I always felt like I was letting them down because I didn't have good math skills. I wasn't that typical child that thrived in math skills, but put paper and pen in front of me, I would draw like it was nobody's business. I was very creative. I like artsy things. I would sew. I would do little sewing kits at such a young age. So I gravitated towards the arts more than the logical side of things.
Okay, so given this, like I'm thinking here, and I'm like, man, ADHD can be anything. What would you define it as an ADHD coach, as someone who has it? Is it you answer a number of questions in the affirmative, for a test, or is it a neurological specialty in the brain? Is there something special about the brain? How would you define that?
Okay, so I hope I do justice to it. Okay. It's the way brain wire. I'm going to keep it very simple. It's a neurological factor in your brain.
So it is neurological. Okay.
Absolutely, and the brain is the brain. So the term around everybody has ADHD, that gives me I just don't like that, because
so it's not a spectrum of ADHD. You either have it or don't.
The ADHD spectrum in itself, there is a spectrum. Okay, so there's some of us that are high functioning, low functioning, some of us that are like on high dosage of medication, some of us a little bit kind of gets us through it. But the part that I wanted to get to is that it's like your executive functions. It's your prefrontal cortex. All of you have your prefrontal cortex. Everybody has prefrontal cortex. Under stress, so the simplest way I like to explain it is, under stress, you can show symptoms of ADHD. So where you can't make decisions, you can't compartmentalize, you're having a hard time calming down. And so under stress, all of us will show ADHD symptoms. Working memory goes to shit. Like we can't, remember things. Decision
it's like
making.
Fight, flight, freeze type of stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So that for an ADHDer, what happens is that it gets amplified, and it gets amplified all the time, every day. So the smallest little things will set us off.
Gotcha.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And the thing that I'm thinking about is, you're talking about people with very strong passions. I'm like, oh wow, every coach must have ADHD then, because it's such a passion based profession. What I'm curious about is, you were diagnosed in your 40s now. You were diagnosed in your 40s. And so there's you talked about medical treatment, but it sounds as if there was also some behavioral treatment, or there was some mindset treatment that you were working on. And as a coach, what are some of the things when you have a client come in that can help them with either functioning or getting out of that fight, flight, freeze? Being able to function in society.
Great question. So a couple of things that comes up. The reason I was diagnosed late in life is I hit that tipping point. So there's that tipping point that you can be going through your life. Some of us are natural survivors. We are wired to go through this one hell of a life. You either really live it or you coast and you just live it, right? So for those of us that are thrill seekers that really want to go after it, I kept going after it. To the point that at 35, I was diagnosed with lymphoma Hodgkin's. I survived cancer. So then, again, I went after it after that. And so kept pushing.
Now, what you mean by went after it was work, like almost like a workaholic mentality, or what do you mean by work?
So going after it is, it's that purpose, that mission. So there was always something inside me. It's like, there's more to life than this. There's more to life than doing corporate marketing for, Fortune 500 companies. There's more to life than just pushing social media ads. Like there's got to be a bigger picture than this, right? Yeah. And I tried to do that through work, but at the same time, it kept coming back. So one thing I was curious throughout my life was my brain. Why am I wired this way? Who am I? It constant part of it. And I watched one of your videos where you talk about that cultural, when you're stuck between the two cultures. Yeah. Man, did I feel you that day when I watched that, because I was 11 when we moved to Canada. And for me, there was this, culture shock that happened too. Then that amplified it more. Who am I? Right. Am I Iranian, or am I Canadian, or what the hell am I? So there was this search that I was always after. And not knowing that really it was me trying to understand my brain. This unsettling thing, this hyperactivity that was in my brain, not physical, but in my brain it was happening, right? Yeah. So to that point, when I talk to my clients that are late in life diagnosed, I always tell them, you've been a kick-ass person up until this point. So there was a tipping point that kind of pushed you over the edge. For me, was having a child at 40 and trying to compartmentalize being a mother. I went back to work when she was only 5 months. So trying to manage that, trying to manage work, trying to be a wife, all of that, it was too much. So some of my clients are during career transition. They've been in the same role for a while. They want to move past that, but how do they get to the next level? Right? They've been in the same thing. So it's not only the medication. The medication was my saving grace in a point where it calmed my brain down so that I could focus.
Right.
Took the medication for a while. I'm not on meds anymore, but that's a different conversation. But the medication was good. And for those that are on it, please continue. If it works for you, that's great. Then it was the mindset, really understanding why it was important for me to do meditation. So now, and I've learned my way of meditation is I need somebody to be chirping in my ear. I need a guided meditation. I can't sit still by myself, and I own that. I'm not there yet, but I need somebody to talk to me so that I don't listen to my own thoughts.
Yep.
And it becomes, so why resist it when I can have a guided meditation?
I love that you talk about the diversity of different styles of meditation, as a lot of people will think that it's clear the mind, and for some people, doing that actually increases the activity within the mind when you do that, and it starts to go out of control. I remember talking to a psychiatrist about this, and he himself couldn't do the, I wouldn't say traditional meditations, but he couldn't do the silent calm the mind meditation. I want to go back to one thing, Cathy, really quickly. Tipping point. So for you, was the actual tipping point that moment where you stopped and you couldn't walk? Is that what you call the tipping point? And for other people, what does their tipping points look like?
So it was a combination of that, and let's be real, I had dark thoughts. And being a mom, you wouldn't think you would have dark thoughts of wanting to end your life. Like, that just shouldn't come. The minute that also got combined in there, and I was like, okay, this is bigger than me. This is something that I really need to understand. And a while ago, years back, I was also misdiagnosed. I call it misdiagnosis now, for depression. So in times of overwhelm, some of us with ADHD, there's comorbidities that come with ADHD sometimes too. There's, OCD, there's everything, all the acronyms, LMNOP, that's all in there.
Yep. It also happens a lot with people who are trying to reconcile two different cultures. That it gets all fucked because there's so many comorbidities that happen there. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
There's identity crisis, right? Yep. All of that. So for others, the tipping point could be that they got fired from their job, that they can't keep a job. Recently, I was talking to one of our colleagues. She's a career coach, and she was saying, there are those stats out there, and 2/3 of adults with ADHD have a hard time keeping a job. And I was talking to someone recently. She was changing jobs every 3 months, and I was like, "Oh my God, my heart goes out to them." Right? So there's a point where you have to understand who you are, what are your strengths, what can you do, how can you thrive. Some of us, by chance, by fluke, we had landed in the right job at the right time. Not all of us are that. And some of us are dealing with these other comorbidities, so that kind of creates that amplification and the tipping point. For me, the tipping point is when you really just don't want to leave your house, and it's like, I'm done.
Right. So you're languishing. You're not feeling good, and you're not functioning well. Is what I'm hearing. So the road to the road to becoming an ADHD coach, it sounds like there was almost like a higher calling, and you had to articulate that for a while. You're like, I'm not going to be good at math. I'm not going to be doing this. There's something greater than the corporate gig that I did. And also at the same time, medication. When did the dark thoughts start going away?
The
And
minute
that's an assumption. That's an assumption. So
yeah, and you know what? Thank you for saying that, because they do sometimes creep back in,
Yeah.
depending on what's happening.
Yeah.
The dark thoughts kind of went away when I realized, okay, this is the brain that I have. Now, how do I really work with it? How do I? And it was almost like this whole new door opened up to me, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I should go to university and get a psychology degree and, really understand the brain and all of that stuff. And then the more I dug deeper into all the YouTube videos and all the, stuff that I watched on ADHD, I found the shortcut, if I could say that. And usually there isn't a shortcut in life. But for me, I just wanted the coaching piece really resonated with me, because not only do I get to work with a coach and understanding myself better, I can also do the same for others. The other part of the calling of coaching came to me because I was naturally doing that. I was naturally helping people. I was always, the person that people would come to me.
Yeah.
But then I assumed that coaching meant you give advice, which is not the case. So being able to hold a space for someone to discover themselves, I kind of, fell over a few times to discover myself. I fumbled my way through self-discovery. So wouldn't it be great if you just kind of hold that flashlight for someone else and say, here, I'll be your co-pilot. Let's do it together.
And you know what sounds really interesting is when you hit that place where you're in that sort of that zone of genius, right? It seems a lot easier to get into flow, like you were talking about when you were a child. Like we couldn't get you to do math, but we could get you to stand. We could get you to draw for hours and just be immersed in that, right? Or immersed in your imagination. And my guess is that this is a point of your vocation where you feel flow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And for me, because now I'm studying the brain with purpose, and this purpose really resonates with me, the more I study it, the more I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Oh, I get it. I do this because of this. So the more I'm connecting the dots and actually studying it becomes easier for me. Retaining the information becomes easier because I'm so interested and so intrigued by it. So my attention is there, which is what I like to do for others, is to find what are you really, really passionate about, and not to care about what everybody else is going to say, because they're saying it out of their own fears and experiences. Where a person with ADHD, they are the most gutsiest people, but then we let go of that guts and cojones and we give it to others the minute we ask for their opinion. And there it goes out the door.
That is so true. We are so willing to take. Yeah, I throw myself in there because there's been a point in my life where I've been diagnosed. So we are so willing to take a risk, and then when the collective starts giving their opinion, it's like maybe I'm just a little boy who doesn't know any better, right? I think it's great. One of the biggest things in positive psychology is finding virtuous friends, and I'm actually going to be training on this 2 days from now. How big is it in communities like this to find a group of people, like a support network? How big of a deal is that in this?
Huge.
Talk about it.
Huge. So one of the things I started in locally in my city was just a support group, because I went and Googled it and I'm like, support group for adults with ADHD. Anything? Anyone? Nothing. So I'm like, okay, I'll start one myself. So, and getting these people around the room, in fact, we had one last week, just, there was 10 of us in this room and we're all nodding over things and over silly things. We're like, oh, you do that too? Oh, I do that too. And then feeling sad about some of the stuff that we also struggle with. Oh, you struggle with that? Oh, me too. It's, the way I explain it, if someone had and I do mean this with all due respect to everybody before I open my mouth on this. If I have a missing arm, okay, and you tell me, oh, Cathy, I'm so sorry you have a missing arm, I will accept that and say thank you. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm missing an arm. And I feel your acknowledgement and all of that. But if you also have a missing arm and you tell me that, it goes to my core. It goes to my, yeah, man, you really feel me. You know what I mean? It's the same as when I was going through cancer. If somebody had cancer, we would just have to look at each other and we'd look at the hair that we're losing. And I'm like, yep, I'm with you. That's all we had to do. It's the same thing with this tribe, is finding a tribe. And that's one of the things I talk about, is find a tribe that gets you, understands you, that it's safe for you. They're not going to judge you because you do silly things. Sure. You know, it's huge. It's huge because we're looking for that validation. We're looking for that belonging, because as children, we always felt like we didn't belong. As adults, we are always awkward in social settings where, you know, you're like, oh, do they like me? Don't they like me? Should I tone it down? Should I tone it down? Right? We are colorful people. People with ADHD come with so much color, with so much jazz. And, you know, sometimes we're forced to just dim it down. And that's so sad.
Hide our wings. We're born with wings, and we're forced to sometimes hide our wings.
Absolutely.
You know, I want to go back to this. You know, I'm not going to dwell on this idea of dark thoughts, but I want to talk to you about internal mechanisms, right? Mm-hmm. Because coaches do work so much with both transformation on the outside and transformation on the inside. I want to talk about compassion, and I want to talk about self-compassion. You know, and then I want to add it to the fact that in many ways, Iranian families and Filipino families can sometimes not have compassion towards their kids, right? Like, it's like, you learn the math, you know? And so in many ways, we want to comply, we want to be compliant, and then we feel broken, right? How much was there a feeling of being broken? And also, how much did self-compassion, or does self-compassion come into your journey with both ADHD and also now I'm hearing about cancer and cancer?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you.
Tell me, Mama.
Sensitive topic on this one. So I'm gonna go. I'll get to compassion. So let's start with my parents. Gotta love the entrepreneurial mindset. Always go, always taking risks, always doing big things, and they kind of infused that in me. So I learned at a young age to just be brave, to just grow up fast and do amazing things with my family. So great.
Now, were they immigrants?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
mm-hmm.
So they had the whole immigrant story too behind it.
Oh yes, I came to Canada with $100 in my pocket. That's what I say. With 3 kids.
If we start a support group for kids who had immigrant parents, like, I think we'll all have stand-up acts afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. The $100 in the pocket with 3 kids and nothing else. And that always, even at our weddings, I'm always like, Dad, do not put that as part of your speech. You always have to work. Because they're proud of that, man, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is like, my dad was actually the same age as I was when he came to Canada. He was in his 40s, starting from zero again. Right? Yeah. So it's huge. And that's what I had to look up to. But at the same time, it was always go. You're sick? Go to work. You're sick? You go to school. You just don't. What's wrong with your head? No, there's nothing wrong with your head. Keep going. What do you mean depression? No, sorry, I get excited about this. There's no such a thing as depression. You just have to keep going, right? So, in a way, did we learn self-compassion from our parents? Well, I like to think I learned a little bit of it, but the rest of it was self-taught, right? Because they were so go. So that gets instilled into your brain as one of your beliefs that this is just how it is. You suck it up and you move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I resigned from working at the same company for 14 years, I resigned like cold turkey. I'm like, I'm done. This was after my cancer and all of that. My mom almost had her, what about your pension? What about this? What about that? I'm like, Mom, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive to see a pension. So I need to pull away from this now. So I digress, but the whole being hard on ourselves, part of it was instilled in us. Part of it as ADHDers, we do that to ourselves because we just want to match up to what's out there. And why am I not the same as everybody else kind of happens over and over. I hear it in my clients. Well, some people can sit still and do focus on their work. Why can't I do that? So a lot of interpretations go on in there, a lot of assumptions around they do it better than me, which is not true. Everybody struggles in their own way. So then enter self-compassion. One of the things after this diagnosis for me was loud and clear was once I understood that like a day like today, I have a couple of big meetings. This is going to take my energy out of me like there's no tomorrow because I'm like giving you my all. I'm concentrating. I'm paying attention. I'm talking from my heart. I'm going to crash in the evening. And that's just the way it is. And I need to understand that that crash is because my brain kind of went over to the Autobahn lane and was, you know, driving Ferrari, right? And I always say that as ADHDers, we're always going Autobahn with in our Ferrari with bicycle brakes, as Dr. Halliwell will say it. And, you know, we're trying to manage all of this. And then when we crash, oh, I'm so lazy. I didn't get anything done. Because you've got 5 days or 3 days of go, 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 go. Your brain can't keep up, man. Your body can't keep up. Then you get into health issues. You get into thyroid issues. You get into, you're a constant adrenaline, right? Yeah. It takes 24 hours to get out of your body, that cortisol. And for me, when I found out, oh, it takes 24 hours, shit, some days in my work, I'm like producing cortisol like it's nobody's business. And I wonder why I'm lethargic on the weekends. I don't want to do anything because it's just done. So now my self-compassion is if I have to sit there and Netflix, so be it. That's what I used to do. If I have to sit there and do nothing, which is hard to do, but do anything mindless, that's the way it is because I'm recharging as opposed to feeling guilty about it. So a lot of times we all carry that guilt about, oh, well, I need to be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be doing that.
That's
either it's going to get done or it's not.
That is so big. And you know what? I never have thought about it before. But whenever there's a large project, and you've probably seen a lot of clients that do this, there's a large project or there's a speech that I have, and it feels like I've stuck my finger in the electric socket. And then I'm out of commission for 2 straight days, like 48 hours. Like you can't get me to do anything. I'm dragging ass, and you know the mind is slow, and I'm just like, what is it? Depression? What's going on here? You know,
which then leads to that. Yeah,
right.
Then you ruminate over that. Exactly.
Right. Amazing. I want to ask you this. I'm going to have you on my podcast because you are absolutely fascinating, if that's cool.
Thank you.
Because this is meant for a long form conversation, and you are absolutely fascinating. And then the Iranian when you started talking about the $100 in the pocket, I was like, okay, we need to talk about all of this. I
told you we'll be best friends.
Yeah, but I one of the things about one of the things about coaching that I love is having a childlike curiosity for the world. Our
Absolutely.
Clients are the way that we approach the world. How does that shift work or hinder you when you're talking about ADHD, that curiosity?
Great question. This one is a big one because what it opens up is also the Pandora's box when you're that curious. So especially with us with ADHD, ooh, squirrel, ooh, shiny new thing. As some of the entrepreneurs I work with, they constantly, there was this gentleman the other day, he's like, well, I can't, stick to a schedule. I run a business. No. There's 20 things I need to get done. Right. And to me, it's now I've kind of matured in that is really, do you need to get 20 things done in one day? Because I know you're damn capable of doing it, but do you really have to do it? Right. And for me, what that curiosity comes in is be curious about what's around you. Be curious about what you want to do. But write it down. Have an ideas page where you're constantly writing your ideas down in a journal. Will you ever get to it? Because one of the things is leading with curiosity, writing it down or not writing it down. You keep it in here. You stress over it in here. So it's constantly in here. Oh, I didn't do that podcast. I didn't do that webinar. I didn't learn this new thing. So you're constantly in this addicted to learning, right? Like you just want to just keep learning.
Yeah.
And most ADHDers have this urge to just want to, they're knowledge hungry constantly, right? But no, there's a point where, okay, enough is enough, and how much of it do you have to do, and how much of it do you put into good use, and some of it just goes in the back in some filing cabinet and never gets used. So that's one way of be curious, but don't deplete yourself. Deplete that energy.
Fall down the wormhole.
Yeah.
And
which is really hard. And then there's the curiosity. Sorry, just one last thought on this.
Yeah.
Is the curiosity around when self-judgment comes in, when self-doubt comes in, when you're in conflict situations where you can't manage your emotions and, you want to just punch the guy out in the meeting. And, I have had where I've walked out of meetings where I'm like, shit, that was pretty embarrassing. I shouldn't have done that. But I mean, it was impulsive and I just did it, right? Instead of going in with a curious mind of, I wonder what's going to happen in this meeting. I wonder what's going to happen. What's happening with this person in front of me that is full of rage? I wonder how I can show up. I wonder what's going on in their head. Because of all things, ADHDers are empaths. We feel for people. So when you tap into that empathy, that feeling of compassion, then you can hone in on that emotional dysregulation that you've got going on and be curious. So that's my rant on that.
That's amazing. And what came up while I was while we were talking is, there must also I wonder if there's a signature for folks with ADHD having a hard time saying no to things.
Oh yeah.
Because there's people pleasing, and then there's this ability to learn something new. And so I could see those two things coming together and really really overextending themselves. They already got a lot going on. The fingers are in the socket. They're being electrocuted, and I mean they're on the path towards what is it that you called it? The tipping point. Yeah. This has been absolutely amazing. I got to have you on the podcast. Yes, I agree. We're buddies. And I want to do a deep dive with you. You have something really amazing that you're offering up, and I don't know if folks watching understand how much of a deal this is, but the Energy Leadership Index is rated one of the top, I think, 5 strengths indices by Forbes magazine, and so it usually goes for a pretty penny. And the price is this a mistype? It's $97 that you're offering it for.
$97.
And American or Canadian elite?
Canadian.
97 Canadian.
Yeah.
So what, like $110?
But here's the thing, though. The reason for that is when I got introduced to the energy leadership assessment and understanding. So there's a few things. It's how you're showing up, your energy, your mindset, your skills, your vision, your strategy, all of that I work together with my clients to figure out the transformation with them. But in the core of it is how are you showing up in the world? How are you showing up and seeing the world? What is that perception you have? What is that lens that you're walking around the world with? If you're in that victim mode, which is the bottom of this spectrum, where woe me, oh my God, I have ADHD, and oh woe is, then we need to go talk to a therapist. You're not ready for coaching. There's healing that needs to be done. But then there's the higher level of energy where you are embracing it like I did and said, oh my God, there's opportunities out there. There's so many things I can do with this. I can meet with cool people like Mark and have a conversation about it. So then you look at the world from a world of opportunity. We tap into then your strengths. What are you really good at? Let's celebrate those strengths. Let's understand them. So we combine the strengths. There's another assessment via character strengths that I work with them through, and understanding their energy. These two bring it together. Not only are you constantly reminded of, oh, I did this because I tapped into my strengths, and then also this was my energy level, game changer. So if anything, even if you don't want to get coaching with me, that $97 that you're spending is to understand how you're showing up in this world and at what perception you're looking at everything around you.
I mean,
so that's
this is the lowest one of the lowest I've ever seen it being offered for, and you have met Cathy, everybody, so she does know what she's talking about. She does quite amazing. I am teaching on the VIA tonight too, by the way.
That's
so
awesome.
Like I love how it's all coming together. Cathy, I've heard enough for now. I've heard enough for now. We'll have you back on the podcast, and we're going to go into these different domains of your life. I think that you have quite a bit in terms of your story to talk about. The get in touch with Cathy. The email is in the show notes. Cathy Rashidian at gmail.com. Also Instagram, proudly ADHD _ Coach Cathy. You can hit that up on Instagram. Now this is the part of the show why we call it the Golden Mic, and let's do a visioning activity that would make Bruce D. Schneider proud right now, right? And so Cathy, I want you to imagine, if you will, because this show has such a big budget, that this whole time we've shipped a golden mic over to your house in Canada. And the thing about this golden mic is they've been rigging it the whole time you've been interviewing in your beautiful house to lower at this very moment in front of you. Now, this golden mic has the power to amplify and broadcast to every sentient being in this multiverse. It translates into every language. Some people won't pick up what it is that you're throwing down. Others, at this very moment, have been searching their whole lives for what it is that you're about to say. Cathy, your golden mic is live now.
Oh boy, to my tribe, to my ADDers, to non-ADDers, whoever's out there in that universe listening from this golden mic, embrace that inner child of yours. Embrace that sense of curiosity, that knowing in your heart that you've always been perfectly fine just the way you are. Tap into that curiosity as a child and continue to be curious about what's going on around you, about your life, about what's happening around you. And most of all, be compassionate with yourself, with your heart, with your brain. Become friends with it. Know how to tap into its strengths. Our best friends up here have a lot to offer. Just know how to be at ease with that. And that the answers are in you, my friend. I know as cliche as that sounds, but deep down, when you calm the storm and embrace your brain, there's a whole lot in there that you haven't discovered yet.
Amazing, amazing. Cathy, I want you to hold that golden mic. I want you to feel the weight of what it is that you just did. I mean, we got a big budget here. Feel that golden mic. Hold it.
Feeling it.
Now I want you to smash that golden mic like you did in all those exec meetings, and I want you to walk out of the room after this. No sitting on your hands around here, baby. Now we have Mahmoud. You missed it. You missed it. Forward this out, y'all. If you feel like it hit you on a personal or professional or social level, or send this recording to someone who you think could really benefit from it. On behalf of Cathy, I've got one final question for you, and it's this: if you're feeling happy and you're living life to its fullest purpose, what is your responsibility to change history for the better? I'm Mark Cordone. This is Cathy Rashidian. This has been Golden Mike 109. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cathy, you are unbelievable. You are unbelievable.